Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, English Listening Practice podcast topic name is 35 plus C1 Level Vocabulary Essential Verbs. And welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take concepts, sources, and really try to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today we're setting off on, well, a linguistic adventure, you could say, a masterclass in really boosting your English. You know that feeling. When you have this complex idea, this nuanced observation, but the words you normally use, they just don't feel sophisticated enough. Well, we're going to try and fix that today.
Indeed. Our mission today, it's really to arm you with a powerful set of C1 level verbs. And these aren't just, fancy words to show off. They are precision tools. They're designed to let you articulate intricate thoughts, subtle differences, perspectives, all with greater impact. And, fluency too. We'll dig into their core meanings, uncover the subtle distinctions, how they differ from words you might already know, and we'll see them in action. The goal is so you can integrate them really seamlessly into your own communication.
Yeah, think of this as your shortcut. A way to sound more polished, definitely more knowledgeable, and truly well-informed in those advanced English conversations. We're aiming for those aha moments today, helping you not just learn the words, but really grasp how to use them, how to wield them effectively.
Verbs of formal authority and structural change.
Okay, let's kick things off. We'll start with verbs that suggest significant actions, often official ones related to laws, systems, maybe organizational structures. These are the words you hear when big shifts are happening. First up, to abolish. Now, basically means to officially put an end to something, a law, an activity, maybe a whole system. You might think of words like eliminate or eradicate, terminate. But what makes abolish different? Why choose that one? What deeper meaning does it carry?
That's a really great question, because the power of abolish, it lies in its implications. They're quite profound. Eliminate, you might use that for, say, a pest problem. Terminate could be for a contract. But abolish, that's reserved for something much bigger, more systemic. Often, something with a moral dimension. It signifies a definitive decision, often legislative. To remove something completely because it's seen as unjust or outdated or harmful. Think about history, right? The abolition of slavery or abolishing discriminatory laws. It's not just stopping something, it's dismantling it, taking apart an institution, a practice, a system that had roots. And it often takes a huge act of collective will, to overcome resistance. It carries that weight of societal reform, a sense of finality.
Right. So it's a complete fundamental dismantling, not just pausing it or stopping it casually. That's a really key difference. So for you listening, when you're talking about policies or historical changes or those deep-rooted social practices, choosing abolish instead of just stop or end, it sends a much stronger message, more institutional, often more ethically charged. It implies a kind of moral necessity behind the action. Okay, so if abolish is about total removal, then our next verb, to amend, it offers a different kind of change. More like refinement. To amend means making adjustments, usually to improve the quality or how effective something is. Synonyms could be modify, revise, adjust. We see this a lot, right? A software developers might amend code to fix bugs, or a constitution might be amended to protect rights. Even a team might amend its strategy after looking at the competition. So it feels like making something better and more fitting. How does amend capture that thoughtful, positive change better than just saying change?
Well, the strength of amend is that it implies a thoughtful process, often iterative, a process of improvement. It's about adapting, optimizing. It's not about destroying something or just making a superficial tweak. When you amend something, you're usually doing it with a specific goal, to enhance it or correct it, often through a formal, considered process. It suggests a measured change, a deliberate alteration, a refinement. Like, amending a law involves debate, revision, making sure the original idea is kept, but making it work better in practice. Or, less formally, you might amend your budget to meet your financial goals. It shows a conscious, targeted effort.
Oh, okay. So it's targeted, often systematic improvement, not just a general, maybe undirected change. So when you want to talk about a careful, precise improvement in a document, a plan, maybe even an argument you're making amend sounds much more sophisticated than just change. It really conveys that considered effort to enhance something. Okay, so we've looked at removing things and refining things. What about giving permission to act? That brings us to authorize. This verb means officially giving permission for something specific, an action, a process, maybe even allowing a person to do something. Synonyms might be approve, permit, sanction. We see this all the time. Banks need you to authorize transactions. A board might authorize the CEO to negotiate a deal. A government agency could authorize a new project. This isn't just saying yes, though, is it? It feels like it carries more weight. official backing, almost legal power.
That's a very sharp point. Authorize absolutely goes beyond a simple yes. It indicates a formal delegation of power, a legitimate grant of approval, and it comes from a recognized authority. This verb is, well, invaluable when you're discussing corporate governance, legal procedures, administrative stuff, any context where permission needs official weight. When something is authorized, it means it's been checked, approved, given the necessary backing, often with accountability attached. Think about the difference. You might allow your kid to play outside, but a doctor authorizes a medical treatment. That second one has huge formal weight, responsibility, maybe legal implications. It really solidifies the legitimacy of an action, makes it legally or institutionally sound.
Right. So it's legitimate permission, often documented, from someone or something with power, and responsibility comes with it. Okay, so for you listening, when you're detailing who has the power to start or approve significant actions, using authorize clearly communicates that formal granting of power. Makes your language very precise, very authoritative, especially in formal or professional situations. Okay, from individual permissions, let's think about how different groups or ideas come together. Shared purpose. This brings us to align. This means agreeing with a group, an idea, a person, or an organization, and actively supporting it. Synonyms might include affiliate, coordinate, or harmonize. We often hear about, say, a company's mission aligning with human rights standards, or someone choosing to align themselves with a social justice movement. It sounds like bringing things into harmony, making sure different parts work together for a common goal. Is there more to it than just agreeing?
You've captured the essence well. Align is really about finding common ground and fostering cohesion. That can mean bringing different elements together in unity, or someone committing themselves to a shared purpose. It's vital for describing strategic partnerships, maybe where two companies align their marketing strategies, or ethical commitments, where your personal values align with your career choice. It's deeper than just agreeing. It implies active support, consistency, a deliberate effort to make sure different parts, policies, beliefs, actions work together. Imagine a company, right? Their internal practices don't align with their public statements on sustainability. That disconnect is obvious. So this verb underscores cohesion, mutual support, often implies a shared vision and a coordinated effort.
Got it. So it's active synchronization. Consistency of purpose. Much more intentional than just casual agreement. When you use align, you're explaining how different things, policies, beliefs, teams work together. It shows a deeper understanding of collaboration values, strategic purpose. Okay, building on that idea of shared purpose, we often need to manage what we have to reach those goals carefully, which leads us to allocate. This verb means distributing or assigning things, resources, funds, tasks for a specific purpose. Think assign, distribute, apportion. We see it everywhere. Companies allocating resources for training, a committee allocating funds for disaster relief, a manager allocating tasks to team members for a project. What's the real significance of using allocate? How does it frame this act of distribution?
Well, the core significance of allocate is its intentionality and the strategic nature of the distribution. It speaks to thoughtful planning, careful management of, finite resources. And those resources could be tangible money, equipment, or intangible, like time or people. It's not just handing things out randomly. It's a deliberate, often calculated assignment with a specific goal in mind. For instance, governments allocate budgets to different departments based on priorities. That reflects strategic decision-making. Or a scientist might allocate their research time across different experiments. It's really indispensable when you're talking about budgeting, project management, strategic planning, because it highlights that careful thought and deliberate assignment needed to get the best results.
Right, so allocate emphasizes the strategic thinking behind the distribution, the deliberate choice. When you're detailing how resources or time or responsibilities are carefully and purposefully spread out, using allocate makes your explanation sound much more organized, more deliberate, highlights that planning process.
Verbs of trust, violation, and revelation.
Okay, moving on from those formal structures and strategic plans, let's delve into verbs that highlight actions around trust, secrecy, transparency, or sometimes the worrying lack of it. These words often carry, significant emotional or ethical weight. First one, to betray. This means being disloyal to a person, a group, maybe even your country, often by giving information to an enemy. Synonyms that pop up are deceive, double-cross, maybe inform on. We can easily picture a traitor betraying comrades in wartime, or a friend betraying a confidence, a spy betraying secrets. What makes this verb so powerful, so definitive in describing that break in trust?
Betray conveys a really profound, often devastating breach of loyalty. usually with severe consequences, emotional or practical. It implies a deliberate act against trust that was established, a violation of a bond, whether spoken or unspoken. The impact is always significant. In personal relationships, it can shatter ties. In national security, it can compromise whole operations. It's much deeper than just lying, right? A lie might be a single untruth, but to betray, that suggests a fundamental turning against someone or something you previously valued, turning an ally into an enemy. Think of a company that betrays its customers' trust with their data, or maybe an artist whose early work betrays the influence of their mentors in a less negative sense, but still showing a connection. It's a powerful word for showing disloyalty and its consequences. Marks a fundamental shift.
Yeah, that difference between a simple lie and a deep betrayal, that's crucial. So this verb lets you articulate a really deep break in trust, a fundamental violation of a bond. Much more than just dishonesty. It implies that shattering of faith. Okay, related but with a slightly different focus is to breach. To breach means breaking an agreement, a law, a contract, maybe a duty. Synonyms are violate, infringe, or just break. We hear this term a lot in formal situations. A legal fight because one party breached an agreement. A company fined for breaching environmental rules. Missing a deadline might breach a contract. So while betray feels very personal about trust, breach seems more formal, about breaking rules or specific obligations. Can you elaborate on that difference? Where is breach most fitting?
Yes, you've pinpointed a key distinction there. Breach is most often used in legal, contractual, or regulatory contexts. It describes failing to uphold an obligation, failing to stick to established rules, or crossing a boundary. Unlike betray, which is about disloyalty to people or groups, breach usually refers to violating terms, codes, or barriers. Think of a data breach, right? Compromising sensitive info. Or a security breach, someone getting into a restricted area, a nation breaching a treaty. It's a critical term when you discuss compliance, legal issues, accountability, because it specifically means a transgression against an agreed standard or a protected space. It signals a formal violation, often with clear legal or practical fallout.
Okay, so breach is the word for formal infractions. Breaking a rule, a contract, even a physical barrier. When talking about legal or contractual violations, using breach gives your communication that formal, precise tone. It clearly indicates a violation of terms, often with specific consequences. All right, staying on the theme of secrecy. We have to conceal. This means carefully covering or hiding something or someone, with the intention of keeping it secret or unfound. Hide, disguise, cover up. Those are common synonyms. You can picture a hidden door designed to conceal a secret room. Someone trying to conceal nervousness during an interview. A smuggler concealing goods. What layers of intention and effort does conceal really add?
Conceal immediately suggests a deliberate act, often quite artful, making something unnoticeable, keeping it secret. It's more than just putting something away. It implies an intention to avoid discovery, a proactive effort to make something hidden. And this verb is versatile. It applies to physical objects, complex emotions, or sensitive information. For example, a politician might try to conceal details of a scandal. A novelist might conceal clues in plain sight for the reader. It emphasizes the active effort to maintain secrecy, often for a strategic reason or to avoid consequences. It adds that layer of premeditation, highlights the conscious effort.
Yeah, the word itself implies that active, intentional effort. So when you use conceal, you're describing deliberate efforts to keep something hidden, whether it's an object, an emotion, or classified info. Adds that crucial layer of planning and strategy. And then the direct opposite, often quite dramatic. To disclose. This means making something known to someone or to the public, especially when it was secret or private before. Synonyms include reveal, divulge, expose. We hear about memoirs disclosing personal struggles, companies legally required to disclose financial records, whistleblowers disclosing confidential information. So yeah, the direct opposite of conceal, making the hidden visible. What's the impact of using disclose for this unveiling?
Absolutely, it is the unveiling. Disclose emphasizes bringing information out into the open, especially information that was hidden, protected, or previously private. It's a fundamental verb when we talk about transparency, accountability, releasing sensitive information. And it often carries significant legal, ethical, or reputational consequences. Unlike a casual tell, disclose implies a more formal act of revelation, often a necessary one. Think about a company disclosing its earnings, or a journalist disclosing evidence of wrongdoing. This act can be voluntary or it might be compelled, but its essence is that deliberate act of making known what was unknown. It highlights the significance of the revelation itself and its potential impact, often changes perceptions or triggers actions.
Right, that act of making something known, something that was secret, especially in formal or public situations, disclose, captures that powerfully. It's the ideal term, highlights the importance, often the gravity of the revelation.
Verbs of influence, obligation, and entitlement.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Now to verbs describing how people or circumstances can influence actions, create obligations, or grant specific rights. These are all about, well, power dynamics and official standing. First one here is to compel. This means making someone do something, often against how they'd normally act. Synonyms include force, oblige, or coerce. We often see continuous pressure compelling someone to rethink their career, a court compelling a witness to testify, a passionate speech compelling the audience to act now. What makes compel such a strong verb for describing this kind of irresistible influence?
Compel signifies a really strong, often irresistible influence. It leaves little or no choice. And it can come from different places: external pressure, legal authority, even strong emotional or intellectual persuasion. The core idea is that the person or entity, they're left with an inescapable need to act. Think of a crisis compelling rapid policy changes, or a deeply held belief that might compel someone to speak out, even if it's risky. It's not just a suggestion or a gentle push. It's a force so strong it basically dictates the action. This verb is excellent for conveying that sense of urgent force or undeniable necessity behind an action, underscores the lack of real alternatives.
Right, so compel communicates that deep sense of powerful obligation or pressure, where choices feel very limited. When you need to describe a situation where someone is essentially forced or very strongly influenced to act, compel really conveys that sense of power, making it clear their agency is limited. Okay, following that idea of obligation, let's look at to compensate. This means paying someone for work they've done, or providing something equivalent in return for a loss, suffering, or effort. Synonyms often mentioned are reward, reimburse, remunerate. We commonly see athletes compensated for endorsing a brand, companies compensating employees for overtime, accident victims being compensated for medical bills and lost income. This isn't just about salary, is it? It feels wider than that, like making things right or balancing things out.
That's a really astute observation, yes. While compensate definitely includes paying for services, its meaning goes further. It extends to redressing an imbalance, providing restitution for a loss, or acknowledging a significant effort. It's a verb that carries a strong sense of fairness. Equitable exchange. Consider a legal settlement where a company compensates a victim for damages, or how artists are compensated for their creative work. It's crucial for discussions about fairness, legal settlements, employee benefits, even ecological restoration maybe, where efforts compensate for environmental damage. It implies a deserved return or rectification. Goes beyond a simple money transaction to suggest balancing the scales.
Got it. So compensate implies that measure of fairness or fixing things, making it a stronger verb when discussing wages, damages, rewards. It's about a deserved return, ensuring something is made whole or properly recognized. Okay, from compelling actions, let's move to commanding them with to dictate. To dictate means telling someone what to do or not do in an authoritative way, often without compromise. Command, order, prescribe, or similar. We might hear about a leader dictating changes to how an organization is structured, a professor dictating the terms for a research project, even external economic conditions dictating government policy. How does dictate portray that sense of unquestionable authority?
Dictate absolutely conveys a very strong directive, often non-negotiable, always coming from a position of clear power, whether that's a person, an institution, or even circumstances. It signifies direct control over decisions and actions, leaves very little room for disagreement or negotiation. When a leader dictates policy, it means they're imposing their will, probably without much consultation. Similarly, historical events can dictate what nations do next. This verb is really effective for illustrating absolute authority, command, or the irresistible influence of conditions. It adds that layer of unquestionable authority, signifies an outcome is set or a course of action isn't up for debate.
Okay, so to dictate implies that top-down authoritative instruction or an overwhelming force deciding outcomes. Really adds that layer of unquestionable authority. All right, shifting to a more positive kind of influence now. To empower. To empower means giving someone the power or authorization to do something specific, often aiming to boost their confidence and agency. Synonyms include enable, authorize, encourage. We try to do this all the time, right? A manager empowering their team to make decisions independently. Education programs aiming to empower women in underserved areas. A new policy empowering employees to suggest innovative ideas. This one feels so positive. It really is about giving people agency, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a profoundly positive verb. Empower is all about granting autonomy, capability, confidence, fostering self-reliance and strength. It goes beyond just permission. It's about equipping people or groups with the tools, the knowledge, the authority they need to act effectively, independently. In leadership, empowering employees can lead to more innovation, better job satisfaction. In social development, empowering marginalized communities helps them advocate for themselves. This verb is pivotal when we talk about progressive leadership, social development, building a dynamic company culture. It emphasizes growth, self-determination, fostering potential. It's about building capacity, instilling confidence.
Right. To empower really highlights those times when individuals or groups get the tools, authority, or confidence to act on their own. It's a strong choice. Speaks to development, growth, that deliberate act of increasing capability. Our final verb in this section, another one about rights and status, is to entitle. To entitle means giving someone the legal right to have or do something specific. Synonyms often include qualify, permit, allow. You might encounter this when owning property entitles residents to use community facilities, or membership entitles someone to discounts. Finishing a course could entitle students to a professional certificate. What specific kind of right or claim does entitle signal?
Entitle focuses specifically on establishing a legal or formal right, a claim or a privilege, based on certain conditions, qualifications, or status. It's not a casual allowance. It's about a vested right that can be legally or officially defended. When you're entitled to something, you have a legitimate claim. For instance, citizens are entitled to certain constitutional rights. Employees are entitled to benefits in their contracts. This verb is fundamental when discussing rights, benefits, official prerequisites, legal frameworks. It defines a formal standing or a granted right. It provides precision in contexts where claims and privileges are formally set out.
Gotcha. So entitle is the most precise verb when you're specifying that someone has a formal claim or privilege based on a condition or status. Establishes that legal standing or granted right. Very useful in formal or administrative contexts.
Verbs of planning, creation, and sustenance.
Okay, let's move on. Now we'll explore verbs that involve thoughtful consideration, the act of bringing something new into existence, and also practices of care and provision. These verbs speak to foresight, creative action, and ongoing nurturing. We'll start with to contemplate. This means looking at something carefully, thinking about it for a long time, often deeply, reflectively. Synonyms are reflect, ponder, consider. People might contemplate the beauty of nature. Someone might be contemplating a career change. A philosopher contemplating the meaning of life. What layers of mental engagement does contemplate convey that just, thinking might miss?
Contemplate signifies a deep, sustained level of thought or observation, often profound. It implies a significant investment of mental energy. Engaging with the subject not just superficially, but wanting full understanding, evaluation, or appreciation. It's more than just a quick thought. It's a meditative or serious engagement. For example, an artist might contemplate the perfect brushstroke for hours. A CEO might contemplate the long-term effects of a major strategic move. This verb is perfect for describing introspection, careful decision-making, or appreciating art. It elevates the act of thinking, suggesting a profound, often unhurried engagement.
Right, so contemplate conveys that sense of deep, prolonged thought, serious, unhurried consideration before deciding. Really elevates thinking to a more deliberate level. And next up, a word with richness, both literally and figuratively, to cultivate. Its main meaning is preparing land for crops or plants. Synonyms are farm, grow, nurture. Examples, cultivating soil for drainage before planting. A farmer cultivating organic vegetables, a community cultivating a garden on empty land. But I love its broader meaning, not just growing plants, but also growing ideas, relationships. Can you expand on that dual nature?
That dual nature is definitely its great strength and why it's such a valuable C1 verb. While its roots are in agriculture, cultivate extends beautifully to developing anything carefully over time, whether it's a skill, a relationship, a reputation, even an idea. It emphasizes deliberate care, consistent effort, continuous nurturing for growth. You don't just have a good relationship, you cultivate it through effort. Yeah. A leader doesn't just want innovation, they have to cultivate a culture that supports it. It implies patience, dedication, that steady, ongoing work needed for something to flourish, reach its potential, turning raw potential into actual development.
Yeah, so cultivate is perfect to describe any process of careful, sustained development. Literal gardening or fostering a skill, a connection, an environment. highlights the patience, dedication, consistent effort needed for something to really thrive. Okay, from nurturing growth, let's move to intentionally creating something new with to devise. This means designing or inventing something new, a thing or a method, after a lot of thought, often considerable effort. Synonyms include create, formulate, invent. A committee might be devising a plan to tackle a budget deficit, an engineer devising a new efficient system for a factory, a marketing team devising a creative campaign. What intellectual effort and ingenuity does devise really imply?
Devise inherently suggests a creative, intellectual effort. Originating something new, often ingenious or innovative, it's about thoughtful innovation, problem solving. It implies a solution-focused approach, often involving complex thinking. When you devise something, you're not just assembling existing parts, you're often conceptualizing a whole new approach or solution. Like scientists devise experiments to test theories. Architects devise blueprints for buildings. This verb highlights ingenuity, strategic creation, the process of bringing a well-thought-out concept into reality. It captures that intellectual jump from problem to carefully built solution.
Right, so when you're explaining how a new plan or system or idea was carefully thought out and created, devise perfectly captures that intellectual effort and inventiveness, conveys deliberate innovation and creative problem solving. Next we have to cater. Now this might sound simple, but its use can be quite specific. To cater primarily means providing food and drink for a meeting, party, or similar event. Supply, serve, provide are common synonyms. We often hear about a bakery asked to cater a corporate event, a company catering a big wedding, hiring a chef to cater a family reunion. It's one of those verbs that often brings a specific picture to mind, a big event. Professional food service. Does it have broader uses beyond events?
You're right. Its main use is very specific, conjuring that image of professional food service. However, it also touches on the broader idea of providing for specific needs or desires, especially in a professional or tailored way. While you might provide general services, you cater to a particular group or demand. That implies a degree of customization or specialization. For example, a niche business might cater to antique collectors, meaning they tailor their services or products to that group's specific needs. So beyond food, it signifies organized provision and specialized service, often going the extra mile to meet particular requirements.
Okay. So beyond just providing food, cater implies a professional, organized service, often tailored for an event or a specific audience, adds a precise detail to descriptions of service. Our final verb for this section, touching on careful management, is to conserve. This means keeping something from change or harm, often through careful management and protection. Synonyms are preserve, protect, maintain. We see cities taking measures to conserve their green spaces, environmentalists urging governments to conserve endangered species habitats, households encouraged to conserve water during droughts. What specific active effort does conserve emphasize?
Conserve emphasizes active protection. Careful management specifically aimed at preventing loss, waste, or degradation. It carries a strong connotation of sustainability, responsible stewardship, often long-term thinking. This isn't just letting something be, it's taking deliberate actions to ensure it continues to be available, healthy, or intact. Think about historical societies working to conserve ancient artifacts, or personal finance strategies aimed at conserving money during volatile times. It's crucial in environmental talks, resource management, cultural preservation. Highlights a commitment to proactive, responsible care to protect something valuable for the future.
Right. So when discussing efforts to protect and maintain resources, the environment, or even traditions, conserve, conveys that proactive, responsible approach. Underscore a commitment to long-term care and protection.
Verbs of transformation and repetition.
All right, let's shift gears again. Now we'll explore verbs dealing with changing states, replacing things, or revisiting ideas, sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much. These are about evolution, recurrence, and often how things shift over time. We'll begin with to substitute. This means putting something or someone in place of another, often because the original isn't available, isn't suitable, or maybe a better option exists. Synonyms: replace, swap, exchange. A factory might substitute manual labor with robots for efficiency. Someone substituting sugar with honey in a recipe. A coach substituting an injured player. What does substitute imply about the nature of this replacement?
Substitute implies a direct replacement, often functional. One item or person takes the place of another, intending to achieve a similar function or outcome just using a different element. It's a precise term for describing changes in components, personnel, ingredients, even ideas. Highlights interchangeability or using an alternative solution. The choice to substitute is often practical, driven by cost, availability, performance, suitability. For example, in a debate, you might substitute a strong argument for a weaker one you used before. It's about a deliberate swap. A like for like, or maybe better for worse, exchange that keeps things working even if the parts are different.
Okay, so when detailing a direct replacement of one thing or person for another, substitute is a concise, clear way to express that action. Indicates a choice made for a reason or an alternative solution. Our next verb highlights a negative kind of change. To distort. This means changing the shape, form, or condition of something so it becomes unclear, unnatural, or misleading. Synonyms: warp, twist, misrepresent. We might see extreme heat distorting plastic, or more abstractly, media accused of distorting a politician's words to fit a story. A funhouse mirror obviously distorts your reflection. This isn't just changing something, it's changing it in a way that makes it fundamentally wrong or deceptive. What are the deeper implications?
That's a crucial point. Distort denotes a negative alteration. It fundamentally obscures truth, clarity, or the original form. It can mean physical deformation, but its more powerful uses are often abstract, misrepresenting info, twisting facts, perverting meaning. The intention behind it can vary. Could be accidental misinterpretation, could be deliberate manipulation. Think about how history can be distorted to serve a political agenda, or how public perception gets distorted by rumors. It's a potent verb for critiquing inaccurate portrayals, deceptive practices, any change that deviates from reality or integrity. Carries a strong implication of negative alteration. Suggests a perversion of truth.
Right. To highlight instances where something is misrepresented or twisted from its original form or meaning, distort carries that strong implication of negative alteration. Signals a departure from truth or clarity, intentional or not. Next, a gentler, often more melancholic transformation. To fade. This simply means disappearing slowly, diminishing gradually in intensity or presence. Synonyms: diminish, vanish, wane. You might talk about hope beginning to fade despite efforts, vibrant colors fading over time from sunlight, precious memories of an event fading as years go by. What descriptive power does fade hold in capturing this slow disappearance?
Fade beautifully captures that gradual process, often irreversible, diminishing presence or intensity. It evokes a sense of transience, the subtle passage of time. Sometimes a quiet inevitability. It applies across different areas: physical appearance, strong emotions, sound, memories. Unlike a sudden disappearance, to fade implies a slow, often gentle decline. Think how an old photo's colors might fade, or how initial excitement for a project might fade if it's not kept alive. This verb adds a poetic yet precise quality to descriptions of gradual disappearance. Makes it very evocative for describing the ephemeral nature of things, the subtle effects of time.
Yeah. When you want to convey a slow, gentle, or maybe inevitable diminishing of color, hope, sound, memory fade is a wonderfully evocative verb. Speaks to the passage of time, the transient nature of experience. Now, for something that can be, well, quite frustrating to rehash, this means presenting something old, already used, in a slightly different way, often without really adding anything new or fresh. Synonyms: recycle, repeat, rework. We often hear a writer criticized for rehashing themes from earlier novels. A meeting feels pointless because you're rehashing old ideas without progress. A director deciding not to rehash the same plot for a sequel. This sounds exactly like being in a meeting and going over the same ground again and again.
That's exactly the feeling it evokes. Yes, rehash carries a definitely negative connotation. Strongly suggests a lack of originality, innovation, or progress. It implies recycling existing content, arguments, ideas, without offering fresh insights, new perspectives, or real development. Often leads to boredom, redundancy, frustration. While some repetition can be useful, right? For reinforcement. But rehashing implies the repetition lacks purpose or genuine advancement. For instance, critics might say a new political speech just rehashes old promises, or a student's essay rehashes textbook definitions without original thought. It's useful for critiquing stagnation, uninspired repetition, a failure to move forward.
Got it. So when you want to express dissatisfaction with repeating old ideas or info without new insights, rehash is a nuanced critical choice. Conveys that frustration with the lack of novelty or progress. Our last verb in this section describes a return from, well, obscurity to resurface. This means becoming noticeable, significant, or problematic again after being hidden, dormant, or forgotten for a while. Synonyms: reemerge, reappear, recur. We might see the issue of income inequality resurfacing in a political debate, Old family tensions resurfacing when everyone gets together. A supposedly lost artifact resurfacing at an auction. What deeper meaning does resurface carry beyond just reappearing?
Resurface does signify a return to visibility or prominence after being hidden or inactive. The key thing is, it often implies an issue, an object, a feeling that maybe wasn't fully resolved or properly dealt with or definitively put away. And now it's reemerged to demand attention. It can feel ominous if it's a problem that resurfaces, or exciting if it's something long lost. For example, old health issues can resurface years later. An old scandal might resurface to haunt a public figure. This verb is powerful for describing recurring problems, unexpected reappearances, or unresolved matters that just won't stay buried. It conveys a return from obscurity, often with new significance, maybe unresolved implications.
Right. So when an old problem, topic, or object comes back into the spotlight, resurface is the perfect verb. Conveys its return from obscurity, often with renewed importance, demanding fresh attention.
Verbs of perception, suggestion, and deterrence.
Okay, let's explore verbs describing how information is subtly passed along, how things appear, and how we might fail to notice something or actively work against it. These touch on communication, appearance, and counteraction. Our first is to hint. This means indirectly suggesting something, giving an inkling without stating it outright, imply, suggest, allude, or close synonyms. An author might skillfully hint at a plot twist early on. Someone might be hinting at plans to move without giving details. A subtle tone change could hint at dissatisfaction. What specific nuance does hint bring to communication?
Hint describes a delicate, indirect form of communication. It deliberately leaves room for interpretation rather than being direct. It's about planting an idea, a possibility, a feeling without spelling it out, often to create intrigue, maybe gauge a reaction, or soften the blow of a direct statement. It avoids being blunt. For example, a friend might hint they'd like a certain gift instead of asking directly. In negotiations, one side might hint at a possible concession without actually committing. This verb is excellent for conveying subtlety in dialogue, stories, any strategic communication. Adds a layer of finesse.
Right. So when you want to describe an indirect suggestion, allowing for ambiguity, politeness, or strategic withholding, hint is much more precise than just saying. Adds that communication finesse. Next, we have to instruct. This means telling someone to do something, usually in an official, formal, or structured way. Synonyms: direct, order, command. A judge might instruct a jury to consider evidence carefully. A teacher instructing students on an assignment. Safety rules instructing employees to wear protective gear. This feels different from dictate, doesn't it? More like giving clear directions, not just imposing will.
That's a good distinction to make, yes. While both involve giving directives, instruct implies clear guidance or orders, usually formal, often within a defined role, system, or area of expertise. It focuses on clearly transmitting what needs to be done, whether it's an order from authority or a guideline based on knowledge. Unlike dictate, which can feel arbitrary or one-sided, instruct often comes with a reason or within an established framework. Emphasizes clarity and following rules. For instance, a manual instructs users how to operate something. A mentor might instruct a trainee on best practices. It's crucial for describing official directives, teaching, procedures, carries an expectation of following established methods or expertise.
Okay, so when giving clear official directions or guidance, instruct is the right verb. Emphasizes clarity, authority, often a structured context. Implies following a process or expectation. Then there's to linger. This means staying somewhere longer than expected, often because you don't want to leave, or because a sensation persists. Synonyms: loiter, dawdle, remain. You might see relatives decided to linger after a nice dinner, enjoying the chat, or the lovely scent of flowers lingering in a room. Tourists love to linger at historic sites, soaking it all in. What does linger convey about that prolonged presence?
Linger conveys a reluctance to leave, often driven by pleasure, memory, an unfinished feeling, or persistent quality. It suggests a prolonged presence, physical, sensory, or emotional, that resists ending immediately. It's more active than just remaining. It implies a conscious or maybe unconscious extension of presence. For example, the memory of a key moment might linger in your mind. The effects of strong medicine could linger for days. This verb adds descriptive depth to scenes involving atmosphere, emotions, any persistent presence. Beautifully evokes a sense of attachment, a lasting impression, or a slow departure.
Right. To describe something or someone staying on longer than expected, often with an emotional or sensory feel, linger is a wonderfully evocative verb. Captures that sense of attachment or prolonged impression. Next up, a word that often gives you a bit of chill: to loom. This means appearing as a large, often indistinct shape. Unclear, particularly in a way that feels threatening or impending. Emerge, appear, hover are related, but loom has a distinct feeling. We might imagine a huge warship looming on the horizon, a sense of uncertainty looming over a struggling company, dark clouds looming before a storm. Yeah, this word always gives me a slight chill. Definitely feels ominous.
It absolutely does. Loom immediately creates an intense sense of foreboding, an impending presence, physical, abstract, or even psychological. It implies something large, often unclear, and consistently threatening or significant coming into view. Unlike just appearing, looming suggests something formidable, maybe inescapable, potentially dangerous approaching. For example, a project deadline can loom large, causing stress. Historical precedents can loom over current political choices. It's a powerful verb for building suspense, describing approaching threats, or conveying a pervasive sense of unease, a growing worry about what's coming.
Right. When you want to describe something large and potentially threatening appearing, literally or figuratively, loom perfectly captures that sense of impending presence and the anxiety it can cause. Very impactful choice. Then we have to overlook. This means not noticing or seeing something, often unintentionally, or disregarding it. Synonyms: miss, ignore, neglect. We have to be careful not to overlook small signs of wear on machinery. An editor might sadly overlook typos. It's easy to overlook crucial details under pressure. What does overlook specifically highlight about this failure to see?
Overlook implies an unintentional failure, failing to perceive, acknowledge, or address something important. It highlights a lapse in attention, vigilance, maybe understanding, which can have minor or major consequences depending. It implies the information or detail was there, but it just wasn't given the needed focus. Think how a manager might overlook a talented employee for promotion, or a researcher overlooks a key data point leading to a flawed conclusion. This verb is useful for talking about errors, details, blind spots, missed opportunities, attributes the failure to a lack of awareness, not deliberate ignoring.
Okay, so when you want to specifically pinpoint when something important was genuinely missed due to lack of attention or oversight, overlook is a clear, concise verb. Communicates that unintended failure to perceive. Our next verb describes a gradual, often subtle kind of attack, to undermine. This means gradually decreasing the effectiveness, confidence, or power of something or someone. Synonyms often include weaken, sabotage, subvert. We might see an economic downturn undermining a company's stability, constant criticism undermining someone's self-confidence over time, a smear campaign undermining a candidate's credibility. This feels like a slow, sneaky kind of attack rather than a direct one.
That's a very sharp observation.
Exactly.
Undermine precisely describes a gradual, often subtle, insidious process of erosion or weakening. It implies a slow but persistent attack on foundations, whether physical structures, confidence, authority, or stability. It works from underneath, often secretly, eroding strength over time. For example, a series of small policy changes can undermine public trust in government. Internal arguments can undermine team unity. It's a critical verb for analyzing strategic attacks, psychological effects, systemic decay. Conveys a nuanced understanding of a gradual negative impact that might be hard to spot until it's significant.
Right. To convey the slow, destructive erosion of strength, stability, or confidence, undermine offers that nuanced understanding of a gradual negative impact. Highlights a creeping decline rather than a sudden one. Closely related, but with a more immediate direct intent to harm, is to sabotage. This means intentionally damaging or undermining something, often for personal gain, protest, or revenge. Disrupt or ruin are good synonyms. We can see people sabotaging their own success through procrastination, a competitor trying to sabotage a rival's equipment, internal conflicts sabotaging a project's schedule and budget. So if undermine is gradual and subtle, sabotage feels much more active, immediate, with a clear, often malicious intent to harm.
You're spot on with that connection. Yes. Sabotage carries that strong connotation of deliberate, malicious intent, often covert, to cause damage, disruption, or failure. It's about active obstruction or destruction, usually driven by a specific, often negative motive. Unlike undermine, which can be a slow erosion, sabotage implies a more direct, impactful act, often designed to immediately stop or severely hinder something. For example, an angry employee might sabotage a key system before quitting. An activist group might sabotage machinery at a site they oppose. This verb is essential for discussions about malicious intent, industrial spying, internal fights. Leaves no doubt about the intention to cause damage or failure.
Got it. When you want to describe a deliberate destructive act aimed at causing serious harm or disruption, sabotage is a powerful, impactful choice. Leaves no ambiguity about the harmful intent.
Verbs of intense reaction and firm commitment.
Okay, finally, let's explore verbs that capture strong emotional responses, provide reassurance, or signal absolute commitment. These verbs add dramatic flair and emphasize conviction. Kicking us off is to outrage. This means causing someone to become extremely angry or shocked, often due to a perceived injustice or offense. Synonyms: enrage, infuriate, scandalize. Actions on social media can often outrage many people. A decision to ignore safety rules might outrage a whole community. A politician's offensive comments could outrage voters. What kind of emotional intensity does outrage convey?
Outrage describes an intense emotional response, often widespread, public, characterized by deep anger, shock, indignation. It typically comes from perceiving an injustice, immorality, gross misconduct, or a blatant violation of standards. It's not just annoyance, it's a visceral reaction, often moral. For example, news of widespread corruption can outrage citizens, leading to protests. An unfair court ruling can outrage justice advocates. This verb is excellent for conveying strong societal or individual reactions to controversial events. Highlights a powerful collective sense of anger or moral indignation that demands a response.
Right. So to describe a situation that evokes that powerful collective sense of anger or injustice, outrage perfectly captures that intense emotional impact. Signals a widespread, forceful negative reaction to something seen as morally wrong or deeply offensive. In contrast to intense anger, we have to reassure. This means doing or saying something to make someone stop worrying, feel less afraid, or regain confidence. Comfort, soothe, calm are good synonyms. A CEO might reassure employees about job security in uncertain times. A doctor reassuring a patient about surgery. Kind words from a friend reassuring someone doubting themselves. This feels like such an important verb, personally and professionally.
It absolutely is. Reassure is fundamentally about easing anxiety, dispelling fear, instilling confidence. It signifies an act of calming fears or doubts, often through empathetic communication, giving accurate info, or confirming stability. It's an essential quality in leadership, relationships, crisis management. When a leader reassures their team, they're not just saying, "Don't worry," they're providing context solutions to build back confidence. This verb is vital for depicting support, compassionate leadership, or that crucial act of building trust in tough times, restoring peace of mind and belief.
Yes. When you want to convey the act of easing someone's fears or doubts, reassure is the verb that communicates comfort and confidence, essential for building trust and providing support. Then there's to tolerate. This means not opposing or prohibiting something you don't like, agree with, or would rather avoid, often for the sake of peace, rules, or a bigger goal. Synonyms: endure, bear, accept. A coach might tolerate missed practices only for valid reasons. Someone might refuse to tolerate disrespectful behavior. A diverse community learns to tolerate different opinions for harmony. What subtle acceptance does tolerate convey?
Tolerate implies a conscious decision, often pragmatic, to allow something to exist or continue, even if it's not preferred, fully agreed with, or even liked. It highlights an acceptance, often for the sake of peace, upholding rules, or achieving broader goals. It's not full endorsement or active approval, it speaks to a measured approach. For instance, a government might tolerate peaceful protest even if it disagrees with them to uphold free speech. An individual might tolerate a minor annoyance at work for team harmony. This verb is crucial for discussions about diversity, policy enforcement, personal boundaries. It expresses a nuanced acceptance, distinct from full endorsement.
Right. So when explaining accepting something, despite reservations, often for a greater good or to keep peace, tolerate expresses this nuanced acceptance. A measured approach. Moving to deeply felt commitment, we have to vow. This means making a sincere, solemn promise to do or not do something specific. Pledge, swear, promise are powerful synonyms. Someone might be vowing undying love on their wedding day. An activist vowing to fight tirelessly for equal rights. An individual vowing never to repeat past mistakes. This isn't just a casual promise. It feels deeply personal, incredibly strong.
That's entirely correct, yes. Vow signifies a solemn, deeply felt commitment, or an oath, imbued with extreme seriousness, determination, often profound moral or ethical weight. It's a declaration carrying immense personal significance, often witnessed or made before a higher power. Implies unwavering resolve. Think of a politician vowing to uphold certain principles, a business leader vowing to deliver on a critical promise. It's far more binding than a regular promise. This verb is excellent for conveying unwavering resolve, significant personal declarations, commitments meant to withstand any challenge.
Yeah. To communicate a solemn, deeply held promise or commitment, vow is a powerful verb. Emphasizes sincerity, unwavering resolve, a profound declaration carrying significant weight. Our final verb for this deep dive captures profound surprise and admiration. To astonish. This means impressing or surprising someone very much, often to the point of wonder or disbelief. Synonyms: amaze, astound, shock. The intricate details of a painting might astonish art lovers. Someone's remarkable ability to solve complex problems could astonish colleagues. A magician's trick could astonish the audience. What emotional impact does astonish truly convey?
Astonish describes a powerful emotional response. Wonder, great surprise, very often coupled with admiration or disbelief. It suggests something truly remarkable that far exceeds expectations, or seems almost impossible. It's a reaction to something extraordinary, something that genuinely takes your breath away. For example, a scientific breakthrough might astonish the global research community. The resilience of a community facing adversity could astonish observers. This verb is perfect for conveying profound impact, unexpected brilliance, any experience that leaves you in deep wonder and appreciation, makes it truly memorable.
Right. When describing something that deeply impresses or greatly surprises you, astonish perfectly captures that intense feeling of wonder and amazement. Highlights an experience that's truly exceptional, leaves a lasting impression.
Outro.
Wow, what a journey through these C1 verbs. We really have unpacked quite a lot. Everything from formal actions like abolish and amend to that intricate dance of trust and betrayal with conceal and disclose. We explored powerful influence with empower and dictate, nuanced transformations like distort and resurface, and even those profound commitments like vow and intense reactions like outrage. It's been a real linguistic workout, hasn't it? Hopefully incredibly illuminating for you listening.
And what really stands out, I think, is how each verb, with its specific meaning, its subtle connotations, its precise use, allows for unparalleled clarity, precision in expression. Moving beyond the simpler alternatives, these verbs really empower you. They let you color your stories, your arguments, your observations with much greater accuracy, depth, and impact. Mastering them, it's a significant leap towards truly advanced fluency, letting you articulate your thoughts with sophistication, with nuanced understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you go about your day, maybe listening to the news or in professional discussions or just thinking about things, I invite you to actively listen for these verbs. Pay attention not just to what they mean, but how they're used, how they shape a message, convey a specific tone, highlight a nuance, and then maybe think about a situation from your own life or work where using one of these verbs could really elevate your explanation, make it clearer, stronger, more impactful. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into advanced English vocabulary. If you found this exploration valuable, please do make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. That way, more learners can find us and continue their linguistic journey with a deep dive. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of words.